Hey guys, it's TFNut. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another action figure review. This time it's going to be of the brand new Bandai Tamashii Nations S.H. Figuarts Dragon Ball GT Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. Big shout out to Ace, aka Animated Heroes, for hooking me up with this figure and for a pretty great price. He got this a little bit before the domestic retailers got this, and it is now in stock in places like Big Bad Toy Store and whatnot. I'm glad either way to have it. Missed out on the international pre-orders from Omnime and places like that. But now I have this. A lot of people have been really liking this figure. It came out back in November for some people. Was not able to get this before the end of the year, so it didn't make my top 10 of the list, sadly, of any of those lists, sadly. But I now finally have it here to review. Let's go ahead, stop blabbering, take a look at the packaging. You can see the front of the box there with the figure in the box. You also can see on the side, it says S.H. Figuarts and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. You also get an image of Vegeta right there in full color. It says ages 15 and up, the Toei animation sticker right there. You also get the Bandai logos, as well as the Tamashii Nation logo, Dragon Ball GT logo, as well as the Tamashii quality sticker right there. And you can also see some of those panel images blocking off, some of the different posing you can do. Now on this side here, of course, you can see where it says on the side Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. And on the bottom there, it also says S.H. Figuarts and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta right there. On this side, it just gives you an idea of the rest of those panel images from the front of the box. Looking pretty nice. And then you also see, again, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. On the top there, you just get one of the finished images of that panel. And on the bottom here, you get a close-up of the face, as well as where it says Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and S.H. Figuarts. Now, on the back here, we have a wide shot of the back of the packaging right there. Getting a little bit closer, you can see a lot of the different stuff involving this figure. If I can focus, it does say super modeling, as well as simple style and heroic action. Just all the different images. Now this does have the bluefin sticker right there, which just translates pretty much everything involving all those warnings, as well as Bandai Namco logos, and the barcode in case you need it. Enough rambling, let's go ahead and get this figure out of the packaging. And here's the figure out of the packaging, a really well done figure on Tamashii Nation's standpoint. I have just ever so slightly some minor nitpicks with this figure, just some personal things with me. It is still a really nice figure, and I get the hype that a lot of people have been giving this lately. Let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories, then we'll take a closer look at the figure. Here's an image of all the accessories this figure comes with. If this is a good enough look for you of what the accessories are going to look like, I do recommend skipping to the next part of the video. I have the chapter function enabled in the description. Here on this side, with some of the other Tamashii Nations figures they've been releasing lately, we do have more of a paperless instruction manual where the inside of the flap does have how some of the accessories and how to use some of these effects pieces right there. I don't know if I can find the PDF on their website, but if so, I'll put a screenshot on the screen in a second. We do have, just zooming in really quick if I can focus there, and some of the blue packaging is covering it a bit, but it goes over what some of the faces are, as well as the tail piece right there and how the hair works. I can't see it either, but there's also, I think that's just for a survey, I'm guessing. So with that out of the way, let's try to focus back up and show you just how cool these face sculpts are, because these are fantastic. Now I cannot tell if this brown is painted or if the skin tone is painted. I think the skin tone might be a molded plastic. Well, actually, they're two. I actually can't tell. I believe the brown is painted onto the skin tone. Just look on the back of the head. You can see that interchangeable head system works like this. These face sculpts are really nice because what's very simple about them, of course, is, they have a little bit of indented sculpting right here, just, to put a small line in there, but it brings out the expression in his face really nice. The crease above the eyebrows, the way the eyebrows are painted, the actual printing on the eyes with the nice teal in there. The printing around the eyes with the red, that is really nicely done. Very clean. I think a very minor brown splotch right there, unfortunately. A little bit of creasing underneath the eyes too, painted on there. We also have sculpting and paint in those creases on the mouth. The ears, I think I can get that off though, whatever that speck is. That speck. We do have sculpting in the ears. Not the greatest, but I don't need them to be super duper well sculpted. They look fine for what they are. They're, of course, recognizable as ears. And this is the gritting teeth face. This one also looks really well done. We have pretty nice paint in the teeth right there. A little bit of a sculpt separation for the top and bottom rows. And again, creases around the mouth. Last but not least, for the faces, we have this screaming face, which has really clean paint for the inside the gums, as well as the teeth and the tongue. All that paint is really, really sick. Digging that. So the tail here is just mostly molded in this red color. I think there might be a little bit of a base like paint coat on here. Not much though, but the actual sculpting in the fur I think looks really good. Might look a little too shiny, but I think it looks fine. Some of my lights just turned off for some reason just now. We do have, plug it in like so, and it stays in there very nice. It can pop out again, but I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time. We also have a final shine accessory where, as you can see, it's this molded teal color of the plastic, and then this frost tipped, not really frost tip, just frost paint scheme going on throughout here. It's not super clean because you could tell that this is a separate piece of plastic, and there's that separation of teal and frost in there. But we do have some pretty nice protruding sculpted parts on there, and we have this peg hole right there. Take these clenched hands, we'd get 2 of, and you can plug in, and it fits in there. Super well done. Speaking of the hands, if I see if I can try to zoom in any more already, we get 2 of each pair of hands, including fists, which we'll talk about that in a second. As you can see, these clenched hands have a peg on there, very large peg. They're mostly molded in this, grayish type of plastic, but they do have like some tendons of the hands sticking out a little bit of detail on the palm too, even though with these particular hands you have these pegs getting in the way, but these still look really nice. We have these different type of clenched hands right there. There's not much else going on in here, and I keep dropping them too. All that looks pretty decent as well. We also get, we believe that these hands are called the Atomic Blast hands. I had to look that up for a sec. Index, thumb, and middle finger sticking out. And then we have the other hands, fingers clenched in there. So that looks really good as well. Again, all these are kind of molded in just this one tone. Flat hands where you can kind of see the separation of creases in the fingers there. Thumbs tucked in. My fat fingers get in the way. You can see the entire palm properly. So that looks good. Not much complaining there. Last but not least, we also get these open hands that you can maybe use as relaxed hands, but they're mostly meant for getting ready to do an attack. A little bit of creasing again in the palm of the hands. So we get a lot of different accessories. I think it's like the fingernails are almost popping out. That's how tight his gloves are almost. It's mostly just hands and an effects piece in the tail and faces, of course. It's still a pretty good amount of stuff. Taking a look at the figure and the face that this figure comes packaged with, this is the more stern face for this figure. It looks really well done, I think. Very similar approach to the other faces. Getting a smudge off there. The printing in the eyes, like in the pupils, all that's great. The red around the eyes looks good too. We also have the paint apps. Just a little bit in the eyebrows looking also nice. And we also have the lines, like the creases sculpted in this face and that line work painted in the creases. Even I don't know if this is like this for the rest of the faces, but we do even have a little bit of lines painted. I think it's painted. I don't think it's sculpted on there. In between the eyes, though, still looking really nice. The hair is, front piece here, like the other faces. It's just molded. Actually, I believe, again, the brown is painted on here. But the actual sculpting in the hair, I didn't really mention on those faces. Lots of nice line work and the creases in there. Looking really nice. There's not a crazy amount of paint apps in the brown the hair. Doesn't really need it. It looks how it's supposed to look from GT. The rest of this, I do believe, is molded in a brown plastic, but it's very consistent with what we have in the faceplate here. We have the articulated hair system, which we'll talk more in depth about later. Of course, the articulation, but it's very similar with Goku's. All that's really cool. It blends in really well with the head sculpt here. The only thing I want to mention is you look at the skin tone in the face and the neck. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be consistent with how it looks in the rest of the upper torso with the shoulders and chest. You have this matte finish in the skin tone, but then you get to this glossy head and neck, and it's not super consistent. In person, it's not that bad, but on camera, I can't help but notice it. One thing I also want to mention is how really well done, not just the sculpting is,
but what paint apps are here in the red for you know, pretty much the whole arm here. It does feel like, you know, Tamashii Nations likes to do base coats of just like plain, you know, one base coat of red in here, but it still looks good, and the sculpting is also really well done. Some parts look matte, like at the front of like the bicep, and then you get to like the glossiness in the back here. Some might say that could be inconsistent. However, you get to a glossy elbow there, and that will mix in with this, I think. And if this was glossy and this was all matte, it would look worse, in my opinion. Not by much, but it helps somehow make it actually kind of consistent. It's kind of weird how it looks. Some of the lighting also helps with how it looks glossy and matte in some areas as well. I don't know if any of that made any sense, but they just did a really good job with the fur sculpting and the paint apps that are present here. And it's a little bit hard because actually I can move the head pretty easily. You can see what's going on with the back here. So we have just a little bit of a glossy red in the whole torso and the fur. And again, that fur is really nicely sculpted in there. And then this looks a little bit more like a matte color when you get towards the stomach. You can see a lot of the different muscles that they've also sculpted in here. Looking very good. Again, the chest, like the abs, all of that looks fantastic. We get down to these gloves. I don't remember how exactly they're supposed to look in GT. I feel like they look a little too glossy here. I don't know if they could have added any particular paint shading to bring out some of these details, but the actual sculpting in these fists with the creases in there and the actual like forearm bracer or whatever, all of that looks really nice. I have nothing to complain about with the actual sculpt, and even though it looks glossy, I mean, it is glossy. I don't think it looks bad either. One thing I want to mention, again, we'll talk about articulation a little bit later. Wrists are a little bit stiff on my particular figure. They can move, but I really don't want to move them at all. So it's a little worrisome. We do have a gold, you know, painted on piece here on the buckle, and then it's mostly just this grayish. I can't really tell what colors it is exactly, but this gray waistband going all the way around. The belt loops looks great. Just like bluish black sculpt for the pants. The trousers here looking nice. Getting some sculpt work towards the crotch area as well as in the hips. Looking towards the back here. And you have actually sculpted tears right here for where the tail comes out. The Vegeta buttocks right there. No consistent sculpting here, but I don't really care that much because it's, you know, part of the articulation. That's the whole point of it. And then it keeps the sculpt once you move it back there. Really nice shading in the upper thighs. They have this like bluish grayish shading in the muscles, and it really brings out some of the details. It's not super, you know, detailed with the sculpting, but it still looks really nice the way they've shaded this. Maybe it could be a little bit more consistent from here going into here, but it's not that big of a deal to me either. They have that shading towards the shins on, you know, underneath the bottom part of the knee there. Again, some nice muscles in the actual molding of the figure. A little bit of crease work going on there. Knees look great too. You bend the knee, and it's just mostly a smooth piece here and here, but that's so it doesn't get in the way of articulation, so I'm fine with that. That's what the inner thighs are sculpted like. Really great sculpting in the lower torso region. That's what the back of the legs look like. How that thighs. This man did not skip leg day. Let's get that out of the way. Or arm day, or any day really. The boots again are a little bit glossy, but also it feels like that's based on the lighting. In some areas it looks like, you know, a matte finish. I don't think there is actual paint. I think it's mostly molded in this color, but I don't think the glossiness, and like even though these are glossy, it's really not that big of a deal to me. These are not as glossy as those gauntlets and those gloves. So I like how this looks with the boots. The way that these are sculpted, all that looks really well done. The yellow pieces around the ankles also come through really nice. It's a separate piece of plastic, I think. Actually, it might be part of the same plastic. It's just how the paint apps are separated. A little bit of a yellow splotch on the boot there, unfortunately. But then you have some yellow around the sole and the toe of the shoes. Another yellow splotch, unfortunately, there. That's what the toes look like, and that's what the top of the feet look like as well. Some of that detailing in there. Last but not least, we don't really have much treading on the bottom of the feet, but I'm fine with it. You have some printing right there. Really well done with the details and sculpting. So not only did I pop the head off so you can see the dumbbell joint that we're working with the articulation, I also want to show off, this is the best way to do it, the hair articulation. We have swivels here and going into the base of the actual head, and as well as a hinge. So that way you have all this different range of motion. Actually, it gets hindered because of the neck, of course, so you can't really move forward that much, when it's on the figure. But that's if you want it to without the head. This is as far forward as you can go there. And then these pieces are on, I believe, ball joints up here. I can't see too well. Yeah, these look like ball joints and maybe a little bit of a hinge in there, but you can see all that moves around really well. Again, dumbbell joint. Let's pop that back on if we can really quick, and then it allows for, mostly just this range of motion where the hair does get in the way of head articulation, unfortunately. It's because of how big it is. Side to side, rotation's fine. Down is really good, and the back could be a little bit better. He can look up decently, though. And then we have a separate articulated piece in the neck there, so you get a little bit better range of motion. We have forward and back here at the shoulder pieces, but it doesn't seem like it wants to go all that much with the range of motion, unfortunately. It can go down, up and down a little bit there, and these pieces will move with it. But then we do have arms that go all the way around here. Seems like there's a little bit of squeaking going on these joints, but it still doesn't feel as, too tight to where I can't move it. Goes out that much at the arm. Arms go all the way around here. Double jointed elbows there. I don't think there's any other extra swiveling here. We have the standard wrist articulation where it hinges and then rotates at two different places. But again, these wrists are really stiff, so I can't move them around too much. Ball jointed waist, so it can rotate up here. The back motion is really nice. Forward is fine too. And then we also have that additional waist articulation. So it allows for a much better range of motion when you combined it all together. Tail piece here hinges and swivels at two different places, very similar to how the wrist articulation is done there. Legs go forward. I think it might drop down a little bit, but not by much. Back sort of. Perfect splits. Upper thigh swivel might be a little bit loose on my figure, but still can keep a pose. Double jointed knees there. We have a swivel here at the ankle. And then the down motion is better than I thought it was going to be, actually. That's really good. The up motion is not perfect, though. Ankle rockers and a toe hinge. Really quick size comparisons. First, we'll do measurements. I can't tell at this angle too well, but I think we're getting close to 15.5 to 16 centimeters at the tip of the hair. So that's going to put this around the 6-inch mark, maybe just a little bit under 6 inches. Right next to him on the right, that is the Dragon Ball GT Super Saiyan 4 Goku. You can see it's going to be a little bit taller. They look great next to each other. Right next to him on the left, that is the Cell Saga version of Vegeta, which is a little bit taller than Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. I feel like they should be the same height. But then we have basic size comparisons with Marvel Legends and Black Series figures. They're going to be a little bit taller than S.H. Figuarts, at least this particular S.H. Figuarts figure. Overall, I am very impressed with this figure. I can see why people were hyping it up when they did, because Tamashii Nations did an incredible job once again. My biggest complaints, which aren't even that big, they're very minor. It's just, I wish there was better paint in the gloves and inconsistent skin tone, from the head and the neck all the way to the chest. Could be a little bit better. I think that some of the joints are a little bit too tight on my particular figure, but other than that, this figure is absolutely well done. The overall sculpting is really great, especially the individual fur pieces. All of that is really well done. Articulation is top notch here on this figure. Might be a little bit hindered because of the head, but still really fantastic. What paint is on here is really great, especially the legs. The shading in the legs, they're really fantastic there too. And all those different accessories that you get pretty much everything you need for this particular version of the character, and it is so well done. They've done a really great job with the GT stuff for this line so far, and hopefully they can keep going. Can't think of what they could do right now in the GT stuff, but whatever they do, I will probably pick it up because they just keep knocking it out of the park. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below what you think about the figure, what you think about the review. Leave a like, share amongst your friends. Follow me on Instagram for more content over there, and I'll see you guys later.